This was kind of interesting. This is Helldivers. Let's talk about some Helldivers, guys. Helldivers boss apologizes for horrible dev comments. Says Arrowhead has taken action internally to educate ourselves. Well, Helldivers put out a balance patch that wasn't well received because it nerfed a lot of stuff. And gamers do not like nerf. And though I do like the fact that they didn't like the nerf. They kind of came out saying that nerf don't buff isn't a great idea. However, as a designer, I can tell you it's not a great idea. I can understand the sentiment, but they're kind of worried about power creep, and they think it's a better idea to kind of focus on the core fantasy. I believe characters are scared of nerfs because it will ruin the fantasy of the weapon, ruin their fun. It's just extra important for us to tread carefully so we don't ruin the fantasy and fun when we do nerfs. We hope you, our players, will tell us when they cross that line inadvertently. It didn't go over well with a lot of people because they nerfed the breaker, they nerfed the railgun. And what happened, and the reason this guy is apologizing for horrible dev comments, is really, let's go over this. And this is where this gentleman named Frederick came out to talk about it. The game is still very young, so we wanted to address that things that were overrepresented before we start making sweeping changes to the entire arsenal. In general, most things we're working on, it's working as intended, so we just touching things that are struggling / overperformed felt like it was a good start. We wanted to address things. We wanted to address things that were given a lot without any downside. Railgun should be good in unsafe mode, and the shield pack, the shield pack simply lets you ignore a large part of the game. So it made a lot of sense to take those down a bit. We want to make games roughly balanced first. If it turns out the things are just too weak across the board, once players have stopped just scratching the surface, that's when we will rethink things. The game needs more time to mature. Taking out special super hard things, well, we might have more stuff cooking for that. So we're kind of saying like it's not things are we're nerfing stuff that's a little bit too good. And then he kind of goes on to say this was kind of downvoted quite a bit. This was things gonna get worse for him. A quick comment on why we decided nerf rather than buff. We're balancing a PvE game. That means balancing power levels versus the difficulty of the game, not versus other players. That means if we bring all weapons up, we also need to bring the enemies up proportionally to reach our target difficulty. We would like to see the other weapons, so it made the most sense to bring the stronger stuff down a bit and the weaker stuff up. On a personal note, I was horrified to see that people were crushing the harder difficulties only a couple of weeks after release. This is supposed to be a hard game. I want you to earn your success. Good luck. I'm honestly not sure why he got so downvoted for this. I think people, again, are still a little upset at the nerfs, edit typo. But I kind of like the idea that he wants to make this game to be hard. And it is. The level 9 difficulty before the patch was not that difficult. I was doing it, I was doing Helldive. It wasn't that hard. It's, profoundly unfun. And then sort of people didn't like this. And this is kind of where Frederick gets into trouble. It's so profoundly unfun to go back to a game and find you're less powerful. If you want to reach some target difficulty in your head, it's on you for being so far away on it with launch. You're acting like you know best, but you don't know your armor stats didn't work whatsoever. How much placing did you do? Keep your weird paternalism to yourself and actually listen to the players. Actually listen to the people playing. Again, kind of a jerk thing to say. Sorry to hear that. And he has to respond to it. And this is where he gets in trouble. Sorry to hear that, but if you came to Helldivers for a power trip, you came to the wrong place. It's a meat grinder. It doesn't matter if you're level 1 or level 50. You just struggle on the higher difficulties, which, again, seems like a good idea. It's got to be hard. You got to be challenging. So you're doubling down, I see. We had fun. Well, have fun with your actor-player base numbers dropping, I guess. Nobody wants to play Run from the Charger you can't kill on higher difficulties, no matter how much that fits your vision in quotation marks. And then he says, a game for everyone is a game for no one. That is the motto of Arrowhead. Hey, Jack, what's going on? I like my games as, and then again, I like my games as hard as possible. But you guys are definitely going at it the wrong way. If this patch is any indication what the future holds, nobody worth listening to is saying that the game should be easier. This isn't what people are or should be upset about. Your design is flawed. P.S. Jump pack buff, please. This is what they're kind of going with is, the difficulty of the game right now. Just stuff like chargers, and I don't even really think Bile Titans. It's just like some of these harder enemies just take so long to deal with that it's not a matter of, I brought the right stuff with me. It's a matter of, you haven't given us enough tools, or the tools that you did give us, like the recoilless rifle, aren't doing their job. They're not good enough at taking those things out. So you're kind of stuff either using the railgun and just sort of running around, shooting its leg. It's just taking too long, and it's annoying. It's annoying. You can make the game hard, but there's a good way to make it hard, and there's a bad way to make it hard, and they're not hitting their mark, I think, is the general consensus of the community. And then Frederick really gets into trouble with this. I'm feeding the rage a little bit for my own entertainment, just so you know. We haven't nerfed anything in the ground. I just think it's a little too early to pretend like the game is figured out. We made two of the most brainless playstyles less viable and brought guns that were under/overperforming more in line with the rest. The game is only a couple weeks old, so before we start making sweepy changes, I want everything roughly where we intended from the start. That doesn't mean we won't bring things up when we know more about how people play the game. So I think he really got into trouble by calling this brainless. These playstyles brainless. And again, they designed these weapons. So if the playstyle's brainless, that's really on them. That's their poor design. But it is kind of an odd terminology to use. And then again, here, it really gets into trouble. I'll be happy to push for buffs if it turns out to be needed. The game's only a couple weeks old. You can't expect the game to be figured out already. We touched the biggest offenders. Once players are past the Dunning-Kruger phase, we can start looking into bigger changes. Of course, Dunning-Kruger, known for essentially people that think they know a lot about something when they really don't. So essentially, he is kind of accusing the community of a sort of cognitive bias, which people of limited competency overestimate their abilities. So he's kind of accusing, hey guys, the game's only 2 weeks old. You don't really know how the game works. So once we get past your Dunning-Kruger phase, I think this is a ridiculous thing to say. I personally would not bet against, hundreds of thousands of autistic Redditors to figure out how systems work. I mean, it's just when you're having, again, thousands upon thousands of games playing out at a single time, that they're not going to figure out stuff that you yourself as a developer don't know. I mean, maybe he does have some information that they don't making the game. I'm sure of it. But then to kind of insult the player base for not knowing that is a little ridiculous. And again, sort of betting against thousands upon thousands of people having sort of iterative knowledge of your game seems kind of stupid, to be honest. So he gets into trouble, and that is why the dev, the CEO, had to come and say, horrible. And I think this is just sort of exaggerated to try to appease the sort of angry player base. And I think this is all a shame because of the way Helldivers is set up. The idea of devs, they kind of have this sort of D&D style campaign where, there's actually a games master. So the developers kind of being antagonists to the player base could be really good if it's done in sort of a playful way, where it's they're setting up, we're setting up challenges for you to kind of overcome. We're kind of evil, because I mean that's what a good DM is. He's kind of evil, trying to kill the players. He doesn't, you don't want to give them sort of unfair challenges, but at the same time, you want to sort of you are the antagonist for you to sort of, the players are the heroes, you're the antagonist, trying to, and all of it's sort of done in a fun and playful way to help the players enjoy themselves. And, stuff like talk like this, unfortunately, I want them to talk. I want them to say like, hey, we got to make this harder. They just need to do a better job at making sure they don't say stuff like brainless or accuse the community of being in a sort of Dunning-Kruger phase. So that part, a little bit too cocky, a little bit kind of a harsh, a little bit stupid. So it's a shame. It's a shame. And I think that kind of sets a bad example that hopefully they can correct. They should, as a sort of like game masters of the PvE game, they should be antagonistic, just in a fun and good way. So hopefully they can correct course.